Oh yeah, sorry. All right. So first off, thank you for having me.
Not a
Uh,
problem, bro. Before you start, any religious tradition? So just so I know,
oh, I'm Eastern Orthodox.
Eastern Orthodox. All right, cool. Oh, that's an interesting one. I've met Catholics, but I haven't met a lot of Eastern Orthodox. Greek, Ethiopian, Russian,
Greek.
Greek. Awesome. Cool. What you got for me, bro? Got 25 minutes.
All right. So you said earlier how God condones SA. Could you just go to Deuteronomy's 22, 25 to 27?
Yeah, give me a sec. Deuteronomy 22:25. But if found in the country, a man happens to meet a young woman pledged to be married and grapes her, only the man who has done shall be unalive. Do nothing to the woman. She has committed no sin deserving unaliving. This case, or deserving death, this case is like that of someone who attacks and unalives a neighbor. For the man found the young woman out in the country, and though the betrothed woman screamed, there was no one to rescue her. You want to go to the verse before that?
Well, it's disapproved to SA someone in God's law.
No, it's not. Verse 28 doesn't care about that. You just got to pay the father.
Well, that's only in the NIV. It doesn't say to SA her. The actual translation is to seize and then bed. And there it's referring to if you have a partner that you're dating and you have shemeks before marriage, then you have to marry her.
It doesn't say
It
that.
doesn't list. Yes, it does. You can go to the ESV. It never says the R word.
It doesn't say the R word in the ESV. Why
It
does
doesn't say the
NIV
R
say
word.
the and I say the R word? Okay, we can go to ESV because I have heard this before. Even in that translation, scholars have looked at it and say that to seize is actually a physical action the way that they're describing. So it is still grape.
Okay, so here's the reason why it's not. Because to seize, it says seize then bed. So would it make sense to
Seize
say,
then bed, meaning that take
okay,
her physically and then sleep with her. That's grape.
okay, so if you say that seize means to rape, that would mean rape then bed, which doesn't grammatically even make sense.
No.
When we look at
What
the
I'm saying,
context, it's talking about marriage laws.
listen,
So
listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying.
okay, okay.
When I say seizes her, I'm talking about a physical action, meaning that he actually physically takes her and
Yes,
then beds her.
takes.
Yeah, takes her by physical force and then beds her. That's grape.
Okay, seize doesn't mean to grape.
I'm not saying that it
Because
means to grape. I mean, I'm saying that it means to physically take someone. I'm not saying that the grape didn't happen yet. He just physically forced her to go somewhere, and then he bed her. That's grape. Like
okay,
if I
so
were to go if I were to go to the club, right, and I see some hot chick I like,
when you
and then
take her,
I grabbed her hand, I seized her, and I go to the bathroom and stuck my pee pee in her. That's grape, right?
okay, so if I can say the same thing. If I take a woman from the club, that doesn't mean I stole her or I took her against her will. That's just added
Under,
subtext.
understood. But in this context over here, from what scholars have said, this right here is exactly what I'm describing.
Okay, I understand that some scholars may say that, but majority of scholars over history really don't agree with that. They usually say,
Incorrect.
I can give some articles if you're willing.
Yeah. I'm sure. Did you want to talk to what which scholar? Dan McLennan, Bart Ehrman. Well, Bart Ehrman's New Testament. Which ones?
Which
I'm going off of Dan McLennan. Which one are you going off of?
I'm just going off the ESV Bible.
Okay. No, I get it. I got you. But if you go on this Dan McLennan is actually on this site, and he'll is on TikTok, and he actually spoke about this verse several times before. Like he goes back into scholars from like the 1800s, and they actually still agree that this means a physical action to force someone to go somewhere with you. Not no consent is mentioned, or there's no consent. They're actually saying that this is not consensual. So this is grape. and all you gotta
Okay,
do is
hold
pay shekels to the father.
All right. I can definitely pull them up. Some articles arguing against that, but uh, we can move on from this for now.
Yeah, sure.
So back to the title. You say you have better morals, and
Mhm.
okay, I can understand that. So, are you an atheist?
Yes, I am.
Would you say you don't have any faith in anything?
I think if we were to go to like a long exhaustive list, there's gonna be something that I have to have faith in. Like well, actually I can't think of one thing. My what's that thing called again? My because we talked about this the first guy that I was with. My sense data, basically. I have to have faith that I'm not a brain of that. That's really the only good explanation I can give, because like I have no evidence that I'm not a brain of that. So it's like that's the only like external world skepticism. I kind of have to believe that I'm in the real world and that I'm speaking to you, another person in the real world. That's really the only thing that we kind of have to have faith in, because we have no other choice. You see what I mean?
No, I understand that, but wouldn't you also say that morality requires faith as well? What
Not
evidence is there
really.
in morality? Okay, so what evidence is there in morality?
Empathy.
Why? Okay, so you said empathy, right? That's a
Mhm.
human emotion. So what about people who can't express empathy?
They were born with something wrong with their limbic system.
Psychosis. Okay, so even with people who are born with empathy, don't you still know? Don't people with empathy still do bad things on their own accord?
Yeah, I mean,
People.
morality is not perfect.
Okay, so I'm sure you believe in subjective morality, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so in subjective morality, there's no clear defined right or wrong, meaning that anyone can come up with their own morality, meaning that just
Yeah.
because you believe something, so it's not substantial. So to give an absolute definition to say something is evil would be false. You say, I think it's wrong,
Mhm.
but not a definitive fact, which is simply belief.
The thing is, I
You
have
believe
an
it's wrong.
objective, I have a subjective standard of morality, but from that subjective standard, I can make objective observations, and from those objective observations, that's how I can judge whether something is good or bad, or good or evil.
Okay, so how can you get objective from something that's opinionative?
Okay, so my subjective view of morality, and I think everyone's view of morality, is based on one big thing: consequences. Right? There's negative consequences, there's positive consequences, there's pro-social consequences, there's anti-social consequences. I also have so consequences. Also put in my own thing: human well-being, equality, and degrees of harm. These are subjective to me, but from that I can make objective observations from that. For example, human well-being and degrees of harm. There is no way in my subjective view that slavery and genocide promotes human well-being, promotes or decreases harm, like, because none of them do that objectively.
Okay.
Slavery decreases human well-being, it increases harm, it decreases equality, and it just has antisocial consequences. Yeah, you understand what I mean? Like objectively, like there's
All
no
right.
subjective standard for those things. So even though it's a subjective standard that I put on, these are still objective observations.
All right. So let me put it to you another way, because I feel like you still may not understand what I'm saying here. So again, your view is still opinionative. And so what I'm saying is that based on opinion, you can't have a definitive right or wrong. You can just have base opinions. That's all subjective morality is. Now to add on to
Slavery
that,
causing
so
harm is not subjective, it's not an opinion. It's factual
okay,
that this
so
causes harm.
okay, no, it absolutely does cause harm, but
Exactly.
why is harm morally wrong?
Because it
That's
causes harm, period.
okay. So okay, let me say this: if I go, if I go outside, or if someone goes outside, I could never. If someone goes outside and stabs someone and robs them and takes their wallet, that causes harm, but that would benefit the person. And should why should he feel any empathy for that? Because he gained something.
He still caused harm.
Okay, so why should he care?
Because does he want it to happen to him?
Why would he care? Why would he care if it happens to him?
If he doesn't care this happens to him, that this person was just has ASPD and they're a psychopath.
Okay, so just because, all right, so if someone doesn't want that to happen to him, why does that mean they can't do it to someone else?
because they don't want it to happen to them. They have empathy.
Empathy is when, yes, empathy is when you put someone else in their shoes. But if he stabs him unremorseful, but he doesn't want to be stabbed, then what
Then he
then?
shouldn't do it. He should. He needs to
Okay,
learn.
based on
He needs
what?
to learn how to have better empathy.
Yes, that's your subjective opinionative view, which I agree with. But
Empathy is objective. You think that there are people who are born without empathy. I do agree with you there, and those people usually have ASPD or they're antisocial or they're sociopaths. But that's really a small degree of society. Now you can have your empathy like degraded over time, or you can learn not to be empathetic with others. You know what I'm saying? If you grow up in an environment or with people that just promote selfishness, but at a
yeah,
certain point in time, you're going to have empathy. Humans are born with it, and they have to cultivate it, of course, because we live in a society. No one just wakes up every day, goes around stabbing people. They have to learn that.
not necessarily, because, like, again, it's about their environment, which I agree with you with. And I understand that psychosis is a very small percent of people. But at the same time, when you say that because empathy, that gives us morals, that's simply just a independent feeling, which can go back to how without a set morality or an objective morality, then we're really just chemical computers at the baseline of it. Because
Yes, we are.
okay, so exactly. So baseline computers don't really require morality or any sort of
Yeah, we
well-being
do.
to
You live in a
compute.
society.
Okay, yeah, but society's man-made.
Yeah, and we have social interdependence, right?
Exactly.
So we have to have morality.
No.
Yeah, we do. Yeah,
For society to work, there needs.
if we don't have morality, we can't have society. We can't have social interdependence. We'll just be like bears in the woods. We'll be solitary creatures. Like if we had
Yes,
absolutely no
yes.
empathy, but we're not. We have to. We're a society. We're a social species, and every single social species has empathy. All of them, even ants.
All right. All right, that's true. But okay, so for a society, it's required to have empathy.
It's
But
required
for
to
a
have.
human,
Okay, go ahead.
for
My
a
bad.
society to function, no, I'm agreeing with you on this. So for a society to function, the people in this society have to have empathy. But humans to function do not need empathy or to care about others. Again, so I cannot want something to happen to me,
Mhm.
but I can go out and do harmful things. It could be as big as uh unalivement, or
Mhm.
it could be as small as just theft. I could break into someone's home, steal a bunch of their money, and not care, or and still not want to kill someone, or I'm sorry, unalive someone. Sorry, TikTok language. So again, the
Correct.
set of so even forget about psychosis, even with grape, like what you were talking about. I can because grape doesn't require psychosis. There are millions of unfortunate victims who their what's the word? Who the criminals don't have any sort of mental illness. They are just truly bad people who feel empathy but still do the things they do.
Yeah, and they don't understand what consent is, or they like to feel powerful. Because grape is more about power. Grape is more about have the feeling of power. It is actually a lack of empathy because they want to feel more powerful than the other person. Grape is always usually more about power than about the carnal urge for sex.
That is true, but still, that those people still would have empathy.
Yeah, they will still have, they'll just lack it for their victim.
Okay, so you see how people can have empathy but still lack morals.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so it still goes against your point of subjective morality, while in
No, it doesn't.
objective morality, yeah, it does because you're basing it your subjective morality being superior because of empathy. When people with empathy still lack the same thought process.
No, I didn't say because of empathy. I mentioned three or four things specifically. I said consequences, negative or positive, human well-being, degrees of harm, and equality. That's what's required for me.
Okay, so common sense and degrees of what?
I said consequences, either negative or
Consequences.
positive, consequences, degrees of harm, human well-being, equality.
Equality. All right.
Mhm.
So
And
during,
grape violates all of those.
all right, I agree with you. So during, I believe, during the 1600s in Haiti, where the French enslaved, and would you say that they lacked empathy, right?
Yes,
Why?
because
Because they enslaved.
they didn't view black people as human.
Okay, so even here we see that it's simply just a social norm. Right now,
Mhm.
let's say 100 years later, they look at us and see the things we do and say we lacked empathy. That's simply social construct and opinionative.
Yeah, in 100 years from now, I actually predict in about 100, 150 years from now, when we don't need to have, cows for food, people are going to say that we were unempathetic for, slaughtering cows in order to eat.
Okay,
I
so
think most of the world in 150 years from now is going to be vegan.
honestly, I don't see anything bad with
Me neither.
veganism.
Me neither. They're right. I'm just too lazy to be one.
I mean, it's not that I'm too lazy. I fast anyways during Lent, and I already don't eat most meat besides beef and like lamb. But at the same time, I am just so lazy. But you see my point, how morality and empathy changes with time. So maybe even in
Mhm.
100 years, they'll say, "Oh, they were just too harsh. They were thinking about it too much and are less empathetic." It all depends with time, and times change. So again, this still backs up how uh, subjective morality is flawed in this way. Whereas if we have an objective morality that states murder, rape, and theft is ultimately wrong, no one can disagree with it.
The problem with this is that even that would be subjective, because where does that come from? That comes from Yahweh, correct?
Okay, yes.
Okay, yeah. So what if whatever Yahweh says goes? It's either, kind of like divine command theory um that makes morality completely arbitrary because it's whatever what God says, or if it's good or bad, no matter what God says, morality won't require God anyway.
Okay, so here's why this argument's false. If I create a video game and let's say you ever play Call of Duty?
Yep.
Okay, so in Call of Duty, you're not allowed to use aimbot. Those are the
Mhm.
objective rules of the game. And I break it and I get banned.
Mhm.
Does that mean the game is subjective?
Yes,
How?
because they made the rules. If the developers of Call of Duty says you can use aimbot now, then it's completely arbitrary. You can use aimbot because they
Okay,
made the
but
rules.
but in Modern Warfare 2019, they never changed the rules, and they said to this value. If you change this value, you are objectively wrong, and you will be banned.
Hmm.
And they know how to design the game. They designed the entire game. This is the way the game should be played. There's no other way to play the game. That
Hmm.
is not subjective. That is baseline fact for the
Right.
developers.
Right. For the developers who made this game, they said that this is the rule: aimbotting. There's no aimbot. You objectively cannot use aimbot, and if you do use it, you will be banned. That is their rule. They made that rule, right? The rule comes from them. The game is still
Yes.
subjective because tomorrow they can change their mind.
Okay, but okay. All right. So we know that Call of Duty never changed their mind about not morality,
Aimbot.
about the rules of the game, or aimbot, right? And so again, with the all-knowing, all-powerful, with the all-knowing, all-powerful God, we know that uh, his we know that he doesn't change. This is a common thing throughout the Bible, Torah, or even if you want to go to the Quran, that God's law does not change because he knows all and he already knows for a fact what is good and wrong.
Okay, so how come he didn't tell them to not have slaves then?
He already did. He said, treat everyone as equals, love your neighbor as yourself, respect all. And then, if you want to go back to the rules about slavery, yes, he said that even if you have slaves, that you shouldn't be hurting them, you shouldn't be striking them. And even
It doesn't say
again,
that.
he
It
would
says
show
as
mercy.
far it just Leviticus 25:44 just says that they're gonna be your property. It says you can beat them too. There's rules about beating them.
Well, there's rules about slaves. because at the time they were saying that at the time the Israelites, I believe, were having slaves against God's law, which is another reason why God tends to take away his gifts, because
But
these people are committing sin over and over and not repenting.
but this wasn't against God's law. This was God literally telling the Israelites what they can do, and he could tell them that he told them that they can own slaves and that they can beat them and that they can be beaten. This wasn't
Okay,
against
let
God's
me
law.
put,
He could have just told them not to have slaves, but he didn't say that.
okay, so if I say to my child, uh, what's a better way of saying it? I don't think child's the best example because that's not the best comparison. All right. So I'm just gonna stick to a child. So if I have a child and I say you can't hit your brother, and he still hits your brother, then me as a father, if I want them to behave and I know they have this energy, I don't want them to constantly hurt each other. So I say, all right, so if you guys want to have a physical altercation in a healthy way, you gotta go in a boxing gym where you can be managed and have a much healthier mindset. This is the same thing we can apply to God. God says, treat everyone as equals. You are all equal in the image of God. So you must love each other and hold up the law according to what I say. But then when you have slaves, you cannot do A, B, and C. You understand what I'm saying?
How about not just ban it like the way that he did for cutting your beard or wearing tattoos? Because there was
I
still going
don't
to be
know.
people. There was still going to be people who was going to cut their beards and wear tattoos. He could have made rules around that, like he did around slavery, but he just banned it outright. He could have just banned it outright here too.
That is true. I'm not sure why he didn't specify, but again, this isn't him condoning. This is him condemning slavery or treating others as unequals. And
Not really, because
this
he
is why
says that they can.
apologists. I'm sorry. I'll be finished. I know I'm running along a lot, and I want to give you time to talk. Also, thank you again for having me up here.
No problem.
So again, this is why apologists and activists throughout history, especially American history, go back to the Bible to prove how morality or slavery is immoral. Like I can give you Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther, and even other apologists or theists like Malcolm X, who was Muslim but used the Quran to base his morality.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand all that because they all use that, but slave owning Christians in the American South, they also use the Bible and they specifically use this verse in Leviticus 25:44, and they use Exodus 21 as well.
True. But okay, but at the same time, they also made it racial. People can use the Bible in many ways.
Right.
This is also where Protestantism comes in. This
No,
is
I understand that, but that's
I
what
don't
I'm
want to go
saying.
too
That
deep into denomination, but
yeah, of course. I know. There's Protestantism, Orthodoxy, Eastern, the Ethiopian Church is a lot. I know there's a lot. You know what I mean? Okay. We got about 30 seconds, man. So we got to wrap up. You got any last thing for me?
Oh, I got nothing. Last thing I want to say, if there are any Christians in the chat, don't be homophobic. Yes, you can't marry a man for a man. That makes me upset sometimes, especially with my boyfriend. But you can still date a man. You can't have intercourse with them. You can't marry them, and that's it. Have a nice day.
Okay. Have a good one. Eastern Orthodox and has a boyfriend. Wow. Never would have. Yeah.